The following is a special video presentation of the Hennepin County Library.
Hello, and welcome to a discussion with, I'm Margaret Johnson, and today our guest is Judith Benn Hurley, and she is the author of The Good Herb. And just a little bit more information about Judith. Judith is a journalist and an author who writes about food and health for national publications such as Ladies' Home Journal, Longevity, and the Washington Post. She is the former editor of the Prevention magazine and former contributing editor of Organic Gardening magazine. She's passionate about food and gardening, and these passions are combined in her latest book, The Good Herb. She has other books that include Garden Fresh Cooking, The Healthy Microwave Cooking, both of which have won international awards for excellence. She's the co-author of The Healing Foods, and she lives in eastern Pennsylvania. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Good. We're glad you're here. I wanted to ask you a couple questions just about why you even got interested in herbs and how you got started.
I've been writing about food and health for about 20 years, and it occurred to me that people all over the world use herbs for a lot more than just flavoring their food.
Okay. Okay. And do you use them on a daily basis?
I do, yes.
You do? Okay. And any specific certain ones that you use a lot or that stand out in your mind?
It depends on, I use some women-specific herbs. I use 2 weeks, for 14 days at a time, I'll use an herb called dong quai, which is the root of the Chinese angelica plant. And it contains a botanical source of B12. And I'm a vegetarian, and B12 is hard to get for vegetarians. So I'll take the dong quai once a day for 14 days. And then I usually switch to an herb called Siberian ginseng, not the Chinese Panax ginseng, but the Eleuthero type of ginseng. And Siberian ginseng is what herbalists call an adaptogen, and it helps our bodies adapt to stress. So if we might get a headache or a stomach ache from stress, the Siberian ginseng over a 14-day period would soothe that condition.
Okay. And how long do you continue taking it then, or do you know?
I do. I switch between those two, 14 days one and 14 days the next. Additionally, each day I also take an herb called evening primrose, which is excellent for middle-aged women, for skin, and for irritability that comes with menopause or even PMS.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was one that you highlighted in your book, in The Good Herb. The one part that I really enjoyed about the book is just how you have the layout for that and the pictures.
Yeah.
And just to talk a little bit about that, it sounds like you have done a lot of travels with finding out about the different herbs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I have. I've studied Jamu herbalism, which is the herbalism of Indonesia and Malaysia, Japanese herbalism. I've studied Chinese herbalism in Hong Kong, Unani in the Middle East, Kahuna in Hawaii, and I've been to parts of Central America and the Caribbean to study their herbalism, and also parts of Africa to study there. And also in our own country, in the upper and lower Sonoran deserts, I've studied with medicine men there, and also in eastern Tennessee with some Cherokee herbalists.
Wonderful, great. And do you also find with the culture it depends on the different types of herbs and the reasons why they use that?
Sure, a lot depends on climate. For instance, the Pima tribe in Arizona, it's very hot and dry there, so they have different needs than, say, herbalists in Russia, where it's often very chilly and cold and damp.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the seasonal and climatic conditions make a big difference on what people need and how that acts energetically with the body.
With the body.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That was fascinating in the book. In cooking, do you prefer to use fresh herbs, or do you feel that dry herbs are just as effective?
Fresh herbs, yes, when I can get them, but they do. It's not always available, so dried herbs are just good dried herbs, and they have to be. The best thing to do is purchase them in bulk. and be able to smell them before you buy them. And if they're aromatic, then you know they're really good. And also, don't keep them in near sunlight, where sunlight can dissipate their aromas, and also away from the stove, because the heat will dissipate their aromas. And you shouldn't keep dried herbs for more than 6 months, because they'll lose their aromatic properties. But it's not a total loss, because you can use them as a top dressing in a house plant, or even an herb plant, or even in your garden, sort of like a mulch. And they do contain some nutrition for the herbs. Coffee and tea grounds too.
Okay.
Coffee grounds and tea leaves.
Now, is it also too with regards to temperature, that there's a certain amount of temperature that would take away from the property, say if you cooked them, or?
Sure. Dried herbs, say you're making a big soup or stew, you can add a dried herb like thyme or oregano at the beginning, but a fresh herb would dissipate in an hour and a half of cooking. So you would add that the fresh herb about 10 minutes before.
Okay, good. For people that would want to start using herbs as opposed to, say, not medication, but getting away from that and trying to use herbs, where would be a good place for them to start?
For mild health conditions, like colds, allergies, and flu, well, a good place to start is to look at what you need. And if you have a headache, there are a number of different herbs that can ease the pain. Black cohosh, white willow bark, even rosemary, which contains a compound called rosmaricin that acts on a headache like aspirin, but without the aspirin side effects. But you also have to look at why you're getting these headaches. When do you get them? Is it after you eat, or after you eat, say, aged cheese or red wine? What time of day they come? Does it have to do with caffeine? You have to look at the whole system and see what's going on. It's also important with a prolonged medical condition, say prolonged headache, or if you get a lot of colds, everyone that comes into every time anyone you know gets a cold, you get one too. You need to talk with a health professional, and you need to not diagnose yourself, especially for serious conditions. Don't take yourself off blood pressure medication and drink lemon balm tea, even though it's a vasodilator. You need to talk to someone who knows what's going on. If you have crushing chest pains and full body sweats, don't go herbal. Go to a hospital. But then by all means talk to your health professional about maybe using a cardiotonic like hawthorn berry to help your recovery. So you need to look at yourself in order to start to answer your question. Look at yourself and see what you need, and then go about it that way. If you have menstrual cramps, talk to friends, talk to people at an herb shop or a natural food store, and see what's going on.
That's good for them.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know in your book you mentioned about that there is some amount of that you should be taking, but it doesn't say like how long and that kind of thing. And is that something that?
Medicinally, there are two types of herbs. There's one that you take as a tonic over a long period of time. My Siberian ginseng, I can take 14 days on and off forever if I want to. The same thing with Chinese ginseng or dong quai. But there are other herbs that you take for acute conditions, and anything over 14 days you want to start to question. If you have a headache every day for 14 days, you need to check in with a health professional. You can't just continue drinking rosemary tea and getting rid of the headache at that point. If you have a cold for more than, we think of that as not a serious illness, but if it's more than 14 days prolonged, you have some sort of infection, and you better talk to a health professional. So, so we have two ways: tonic over a long period, or acute for acute symptoms.
Okay, good. That explains it a little bit more. So too, are there if someone's starting too? Do you have a list of must-have herbs? That'd be a good place to start.
It depends for medicinal uses or culinary. It depends on an herbal first aid kit. I would keep black cohosh, which is the root of a Native American plant. I would keep that in tincture form for a headache. I would keep essential oil of lavender if I had stress, and I would make it into. I'm flinging time. Time waits for no one. I would take a small spray bottle and fill it up about half a cup of water, and then essential oil of lavender, about 10 drops. And then if I felt stressed, I would spray it into the air, and it's a mild nervine. I would keep that. I would keep oregano. If I had indigestion, if I had a nervous stomach, oregano is a great carminative, which is what herbalists call anything that soothes the stomach, or ginger, which is also a great carminative. Those are things you can keep on hand, and everyone has those in their pantry. Thyme is another great herb to keep on hand, as well as being a great blender in food. You can use it. Do you know, if it just needs something in cooking, thyme will usually help. Thyme is a great blender. It contains just the right volatile oils to pull the flavors of a soup or a stew together. But it also contains a compound called thymol, Thymol, and that's an ingredient in a lot of commercial cough syrups. And people who don't like to take cough syrups commercially because of the artificial flavors or colors in them can make a thyme tea. Steep 1 teaspoon of dried thyme in 1 cup of just boiled water, covered for 4 minutes, and then strain and sip. And it has a wonderful action on the lung.
Wonderful. Yeah. Do you know of some other examples that you could use as opposed to using over the counter?
Another cough syrup to make is out of garlic and honey. Garlic is antibacterial and anti-infective, and you can take a whole bulb, not just one almond-shaped clove, but a whole bulb of garlic, skin 2, and finely chop, and put it into a bowl, and then pour on honey to cover. Then cover the bowl with plastic wrap and let it sit overnight. And in the night, the garlic releases penetrating juices into the honey. So in the morning, you strain away and discard the garlic, and you take 1 tablespoon 3 times a day for cough, cold, and congestion, and it is very aromatic. So if you have a sweetheart, then give him some too.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you'll all be very aromatic. But it's an excellent cough and cold remedy. Another cough and cold remedy is mustard seed. This is black mustard seed, but it also comes in a yellowy buff color. And you can make a foot bath out of mustard seed. Get a basin and fill it with about 2 quarts of hot water, and then take 2 tablespoons of mustard seed and crush them in a mortar or a spice grinder, put them into the hot water, put your feet in, and then cover the top of it with a towel and sit for about 20 minutes. And it's very decongesting, and it's also very warming to the feet. You can do the same thing with ginger by grating a handful of ginger and squeezing the gratings into that 2 quarts of hot water, and doing the foot bath that way.
You probably also do not only feel it in your feet, it probably maybe moves up a little bit.
It does. It warms the whole body.
Wonderful. Great. And all this is explained too in the book?
Oh yes, it is.
So all there's ideas.
All the formulas are
wonderful.
Yeah.
The other thing is the herbs. What herbs do you recommend to spice up foods for people that are in low sodium diets? Do you have anything?
There are a number of herbs and herb combinations. Garlic is excellent because garlic is what we call a base note, and it adds a lot of resonance to food. So if you're making a vegetarian vegetable soup and you're using vegetable stock, you need some reverberation, and garlic has nice base notes. It's excellent. Rosemary is also an excellent herb. Because it contains 19 different volatile oils, which is very complex. It's a whole symphony of taste unto its own. And it's traditionally used because it has sort of a piney top note. It's traditionally used with fatty foods such as lamb and pork and beef. But now, the lighter fare, the more grain-based diets, brown rice and barley and quinoa, it's excellent. Those grains are excellent with rosemary because they give them a lot of life and a lot of flavor. So rosemary's changing its career.
Wonderful. And these are so many spices that we use that we never knew had such wonderful properties to them. In your book, you also contain references to herbs as beautifiers. Do you have any examples for that you want to share with us today?
Lavender is a great is a great tonic for the skin. Again, the lavender spray that we used as a nervine is also very soothing to the skin. It helps soothe inflammation and helps new tissue form. And it's also externally moisturizing to the skin. Calendula is another. Calendula is like a marigold. And calendula made into a tea and splashed on the face is also very, very soothing. Chamomile, too, that calms us from the inside, also calms us from the outside, too. It's very calming to the skin.
You mentioned, too, in the book about tea, like you could actually put like a tea bag on the eyes.
Oh, right. A used tea bag or one that's very wet and placed on the eyes has a tonic and astringent action. It soothes tired eyes and stressed eyes and also helps the portion underneath that can get either baggy or dark circles, depending on what kind of stress we're under.
Wonderful. That was, when I heard that, it was penetrating. I mean, the penetration would help with the eyes.
Oh, it's excellent.
Great. And what are essential oils and how are they used, and where would be a good place for people to purchase them?
Essential oils are actually are not oily. They're the volatile oils that make the plant characteristic. We talked about rosemary with 19 different volatile oils. Those are essential oils, and they're extracted by steam extraction. And I have a little bottle here. I had a little bottle here somewhere. Oh, you got it. No, that's honey. Well, they come in very small bottles, about 1/4 of an ounce, and basically herbs and flowers and barks, and they're used in the study in the art and science of aromatherapy. And the idea is that by inhaling these essences or mixing them with a carrier oil, like massage oil, such as grapeseed oil, that they're penetrated into the skin and will calm us that way also. Lavender is very popular nervine. Sage, essential oil of sage is used for congestion. Essential oil of thyme is used for congestion. Essential oils in aromatherapy are particularly effective with moods, cranky moods, and also respiratory for obvious reasons because we do inhale. To buy a good essential oil, look for a bottle that's not transparent but is opaque, either blue or brown usually, because light will dissipate the oils, the essences. And then go to a place where each essential oil is priced differently. If you go into a place and they're all the same price, they're not essential oils. They may be fragrance oils, so make sure it says essential oil on the bottle. Avoid fragrance oil, avoid perfume oil if essential oil is what you're looking for. And they do, as I mentioned before, all have different prices. Peppermint and rosemary, for example, are very inexpensive to extract. So they will be less expensive than lavender, which is more expensive to extract. And for the very simple aromatherapy, you can take, for instance, for stress, essential oil of lavender on a tissue, 2 drops on a tissue and inhale. Or for jet lag, essential oil of lemongrass. For jet lag when you feel very sluggish, 2 drops of essential oil of lemongrass on a tissue and inhale.
And that would be
instant aromatherapy.
Wow, well, that's great. You also mentioned a lot about herbs, using herbs instead of pesticides, and where you plant them in your garden.
Right. One example is rosemary again. Can get something called powdery mildew, especially if the plants, it's a rainy season, the plants are too close together. But interplanting with sage, the camphor in the sage helps prevent the mildew from forming on the rosemary. Another example is basil plants. Basil is highly susceptible to Japanese beetle attack, and Japanese beetles can strip a whole patch of basil overnight. So what you want to do is interplant jalapeno pepper, and for each dozen basil plants you can use 3 jalapeno pepper plants, and it'll help keep the Japanese beetles away. You can also make sprays out of garlic. If you have white fly, for instance, mash 4 cloves of garlic in the bottom of a quart jar, pour on 4 cups of hot water, cover, and let it sit until it's cool, at least 20 minutes. Strain away the garlic, pour the mixture into a sprayer and spray, and do that for 2 days in a row, and then wait, and then 2 weeks later, 2 days in a row.
It's much better than the pesticides. that we're
Yes, but you're
spraying
going
on
to eat this stuff and
it.
drink it.
Yes, you're right. Right. You also mentioned catnip, which was really interesting too.
Yeah.
That was a
Famous for feline fun, but when it makes cats crazy, it makes humans. It's unnerving to us. It calms us down. It's a great tea after a stressful day. You can take 1 teaspoon of dried catnip, 1 cup of just boiled water, cover and let it steep for about 6 minutes, and then strain and sip. Another nice combination is catnip and chamomile. Use a half a teaspoon of each. It's a wonderful stress releaser and very rejuvenating too.
And you have measurements in that in your cookbook
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
And do you know too what if you go to a health food store and get some of these any of the dried herbs, how long do they usually change them periodically too, that you wouldn't be getting older herbs?
Well, you want to go to a place that's really popular, because then the turnover will be better. Try to buy them in bulk. Try to look at them. Look at the color. If they look dried out and brown, they're not going to be, the volatile oils are not going to be that intense.
Okay. Okay.
And 6 months again. Don't keep
6
them
months.
longer than 6
Nothing more
months.
than that. Okay. And also, in your book, you mentioned, of course, that caffeine is not a healthy substance to have, and if you could have some substitute for that. Do you have any ideas for that?
Well, let's back up a little on caffeine. What happens is 2 cups a day, each equivalent to about 250 milligrams of caffeine. Any more than that, and it starts to pull the calcium out of your bones. So if you drink coffee, drink it in moderation. If you get stomach aches from drinking coffee, sometimes it's too acidic. What you can do is a little herbal remedy in the coffee. When you're grinding your own beans, for each cup that you're making, put in 1 pod of cardamom and grind it along with it. Cardamom is very cooling and tastes good with the coffee, and it'll help if you get an acidic stomach. But as far as herbal stimulants, one good example is thyme. And thyme is used by French herbalists as a mild stimulant and to treat sluggish metabolism. Rosemary is also used in the same way. Egyptian herbalists use peppermint as a mild stimulant, and they make it in an interesting way. Anyone who grows peppermint knows they have a lot of it. And they take 2 handfuls, just big fresh handfuls of peppermint, and pour on room temperature water, about 1 quart, and just let it sit overnight. And in the morning they discard the peppermint leaf, and they have this wonderful peppermint water that is so refreshing the first thing in the morning. It's incredible.
All ready to go.
Yeah, so that's some herbal, an herbal upper, Egyptian style.
Good, good. You know, one other thing I really enjoyed in the book was talking about growing your own herbs and how easy that can be. And, you know, you've instructed us in that. Did you want to say anything more about that at all?
Well, a lot of people don't know what to grow. So I think that what you have to do is look at your interests. If you like to cook, look in your spice cabinet and see what you've got. If you cook with a lot of thyme and rosemary, those are the herbs you should grow. If you've had the same bottle of marjoram in there for 5 years, you're probably not going to use it fresh either. So that's one way to start. If you drink a lot of herbal teas, you can make a tea garden, growing peppermint, lemon balm, lemon thyme, raspberry leaf, and make an entire tea garden. You can also, you can go on and on. You can make a Shakespeare garden using rosemary and wormwood from different Shakespearean plays, or you can make, a lot of people like to make butterfly and hummingbird gardens using herbs such as bee balm and borage that attract butterflies and hummingbirds.
Wonderful. Yeah, that you talked a lot about that in there as well.
Yeah,
Borage.
It's nice to have the little critters around.
Wonderful. Great. And are you going to be continuing in your direction of herbalism, or what's your future?
My next book actually does have a lot of herb in it. It's a book called Natural Rhythms, based on the study of chronobiology. We have different hormones being released at different times of the day, and for instance, some people get 4 o'clock blues. And if we know that in advance and we know why, we can use herbs, foods, and various body stretching, acupressure points, yoga, to either counteract or emphasize how we're feeling. So yes, herbs figure heavily into my future.
Wonderful, good. It's really, it sounds like really being in tune to your body and what's going on.
Right.
It seems like you're going more and more in that direction.
Yeah, I think we should all be our own general health managers and take care of ourselves as much as we can and gain enough knowledge to do so. And speak intelligently with our health professionals. I find most of the physicians that I've talked to lately are very receptive to herbal treatment when they know what it is. They have patients they call BYOs because they bring their own.
Right.
And I've had, my brother's a cardiologist, and he phones all the time and says, what's echinacea? Can someone with high blood pressure take it? You know, or on and on. So they want to know.
Right.
And I think the fear is going away.
Wonderful, great. We only have a couple more minutes, but did you want to talk a little bit about echinacea?
Oh, it's a wonderful plant, the purple cone flower. It's beautiful. It looks like a pale purple daisy with a little cone head. And the roots and the cone head also are used to make a tincture. That's an herb that's steeped in either alcohol, a glycerite, which comes from grapefruit seed, or vinegar, and they steep the herb in that. And in the case of echinacea, we take that right at the beginning of the cold and flu season. It's an immuno booster. Echinacea acts on a cellular level to help prevent viruses from invading our bodies.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you just take it right away, right from this,
Yes.
right when you start feeling it.
Right, 14 days only.
14 days only. Okay, and then so we do know how we can,
Right.
how long you go. Wonderful. That's been in the news, so that's been a big one right now.
That's a good one.
Well, this has been a wonderful book. It's The Good Herb, again, by Judith Benn Hurley. And it's a great book to start if you're just starting and interested in herbalism as well as the history and that. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we
I enjoyed it.
end
Thank
up?
you for having me.
Great. Well, we're glad that you were able to make it. Thank you again, and tune in.
A presentation of the Hennepin County Library.